Hi folks, how you doing? The game we're gonna see today in this video was pretty much the most awaited battle in this 2015 US Chess Championship. We had here in the fourth round Hikaru Nakamura with white pieces playing Wesley So, two elite players, well established into the world's top 10. I think this is this must be the highest rated game in the history of United States chess championships, because Nakamura is number 3 right now, I think, and Wesley So must be number 8 or number 8 and number 7 in the world, something like that. So both of them well above 2700, knocking on the doors of the 2800 rating. So yeah, it was very central battle for this fourth round, and it certainly didn't let us down. It was a hard-fought game with a very interesting battle by both players. Let's see what happened. 1c4 is what Nakamura chose, e6, and we soon transpose into a classical Queen's Gambit declined, knight f3, knight f6. The Queen's Gambit declined is a defense and opening we have seen Wesley playing very well lately in Tata Steel tournament, for instance. And of course, with white pieces, Hikaru plays a great variety of lines and openings. Bishop to g5, h6, bishop h4 was played, after which Wesley So just castles. e3, and well, it is black to choose the system it wants to play, and Wesley went for b6, introducing more or less, not sure about the move order here, but the idea, I guess, is the so-called Tartakower system, which is meant to develop this sometimes problematic bishop, light squared bishop, on b7. This piece is the most problematic for black in this Queen's Gambit decline, because you have the pawn on e6. It's not that easy to find an active place for this bishop, so this is one of the approaches black has here. b6, very solid and very well respected approach to fianchetto the bishop on b7. Here Nakamura plays bishop to d3. Well, as far as I know, the most common approach by white, or maybe the most classical one, I don't know, I'm not that expert on this one, is to take on f6 and later take on d5, making this b6 bishop b7 maneuver not that effective, not that useful, avoiding this bishop on b7 from having a free great diagonal. Well, now on b7 the bishop would be facing his own pawn on d5. Once again, I'm not sure if the move order is exactly this one, the main line or whatever, but this is usually the main idea I have seen in this Tartakower variation. But okay, after b6 Nakamura plays bishop d3, very reasonable as well. So Wesley plays bishop to b7, white castles, knight bd7, bishop goes back to g3, and black counterattacks in the center, very typically in this Queen's Gambit declines line, with c5. And well, at this point, after 10 moves, I honestly think Wesley is doing absolutely fine here. Maybe white has some microscopical edge here, but definitely black seems to be doing very fine with enough counter chances in the center, with having almost completed development. So a good position for black here, definitely. Well, there's lots of tension in the center, so Hikaru decides to change it this way. Wesley recaptures here with the knight. He doesn't want to block his own bishop on b7 with a pawn. Knight takes with the same reason. For the same reason, probably he takes with the bishop back. And now Nakamura plays queen to e2, completes development, connects the rooks. Quiet move so far, quiet game so far. Both players developing pieces. C takes d4 is played. Nakamura doesn't want an isolated queen pawn so far, so he takes with the knight back. And Wesley plays bishop to f6, planning to do, well, what we're about to see. After rook fd1, very normal centralizing move, he gives up the bishop pair, he takes on d4, but in exchange white gets an isolated queen pawn here, which should be more of a weakness than a possibility for attack or something, because there aren't that many pieces left to think about any serious chance of attacking here. So one thing for another, I guess. Black lost the bishop pair, white has the bishop pair now, but white has this not very nice isolated queen pawn, which is blocked already by this bishop. So a fine position here for black. And well, attending to the stable and static position of the nature of the position, black can afford to do what Wesley So in fact did. He wants to reorganize his knight, and he did it in a quite radical way, going with the knight back to b8. I mean, where this knight can go here from here to f6, but from f6 you can't do that much. You can't go to e4, you can't do that much. So he goes to b8 to be able to go to c6, and from there the knight is much better placed, attacking the weakness of white on d4. Nothing out of this world, but of course a very reasonable maneuver. Rook a c1 and knight c6. Now bishop b5 is played, attacking the knight, so rook to c8, defending it, and rook c3. Nakamura will love here to double rooks and have complete control of the open c file, but Wesley doesn't allow it, of course. Knight to e7, facing this, the control of the c file. Bishop a6 is played, after which Wesley takes, and b takes c3. Once again, positional subtleties here. This d4 pawn isn't that weak anymore. It isn't isolated, it's protected by a pawn, but on the other hand, white gets a pawn on an open file for black, on a file which is open for black, for a heavy piece of black to be deployed on not c8 but maybe c7 and attacked here. So one thing for another, the game goes on with more or less a stable and balanced position, although black can't really complain about the result of the opening and the middle game he get. Knight goes to f5, and Nakamura keeps his bishop pair going, bishop f4. If white has any kind of hope of any kind of edge, it must be in his bishop pair, so otherwise black bishop on d5, if these couple of pieces are exchanged, this bishop on d5 will be far superior to this other bishop, so bishop f4 very reasonable. Wesley goes queen h4, attacking the bishop on f4, which goes back to c1, and now rook d8, bringing the rook to the d file. f3 is played here. Now rook d7, with a couple of ideas I can see. First, the queen could go back now to the d file, doubling on the d file, and on the other hand, the rook can go to the c file, to c7, attacking the weakness of white on c3. Note that bishop is attacking c8, so rook c8 wasn't possible. Now bishop d3 is played, and rook to c7, attacking the weak pawn on c3, which Nakamura protects with bishop to d2. Black clearly takes initiative in this position. I mean, although white is holding everything together so far, but Nakamura can't be that content with the outcome of the opening. Of course, he didn't get much of an advantage. In fact, black is pressing slightly here. Queen d8 was played. The queen did what he wanted, so it goes back. Rook to c1, queen f6, a4, g5, and we reach an important point. f4 was played by Nakamura, trying to open up a little bit this king side. Don't forget he has the bishop pair, which could be useful if the king gets vulnerable. G takes, and here we could use a moment to see why can't white take immediately back on f4 with the bishop. Consider it like a tactics trainer, if you will. There is a tactical reason why bishop cannot take on f4 right now. The reason being this one. After bishop takes f4, of course you're attacking the rook, but the rook takes on c3, and after rook takes, black takes on d4, forking, attacking at the same time the king and the rook, recapturing, regaining material, and in fact winning, not sure if 1 or 2 pawns, having a much better position of course than previously. So after g takes f4, queen f2 is the move to recapture here, safer. Knight h4 was played by Wesley So. You're attacking g2 and also putting more, trying to be more stubborn on giving up this f4 pawn. Here it seems Hikaru should have captured here on f4 with the queen and not with the bishop, which he did. Taking with the bishop is clearly a mistake, we can say that, as he himself you could see Hikaru, he's very expressive during the games. He was shaking his head because he missed the very beautiful response by Wesley So in this position. Knight f3 check, very nice move, forcing the capture of the knight with the pawn. Obviously the queen cannot take there, the bishop is protecting. Now black takes on f4 and really gains a substantial edge here. This queen is right now attacking the rook, queen and bishop are attacking f3. On the other hand, you can't just leave the c pawn alone going, for instance, rook f1, because c3 is still attacked by the rook. So quite a turnaround here, as black gets really some serious pressure on the position and forces Nakamura to go queen g3, allowing the queen exchange and losing a pawn in the process. But this is the best white had here. Bishop takes f3. In this way Wesley won a pawn and goes ahead to try to squeeze his advantage against Nakamura in this endgame. King to f2 was played. Now bishop c6, no brainer, attacking the pawn. Rook a1 and f6 with a couple of ideas, I think. Well, the rook could go now to g7, attacking this potentially vulnerable g3 pawn, and also black could be thinking about creating a passed pawn in the center with e5, who knows. a5, desperately Nakamura tries to get rid of weaknesses, of weak pawns. b5 is played, and c4, he wants to liquidate as many pawns as possible, of course. Bishop takes c4. Well, he got rid of a couple of weak pawns, but his position is still quite uncomfortable. King f7, king e3, king e7, now rook b1. Oops, sorry. Rook b1, I mean, active pieces, that's basically what chess is about, so Nakamura tries to apply that to his rook. It was doing close to nothing on a1, so why not go to the open file, try to go to b8, maybe go to behind the king to attack this, well, long way, but you have to start with a move. But very wisely probably Wesley doesn't allow that and plays rook c8, not allowing the rook incursion into the 8th rank. g4 is played here, king d6, and now bishop a6 attacking the rook, which goes to g8, attacking f4. So does Nakamura, attacking another unprotected pawn. These pawns are exchanged, which I think it helps Nakamura, as many pawns are exchanged here, of course in favorable conditions, should be helping the defender here. Rook e4 check, king d3, and now rook h4. Well, black of course still up a pawn, but after bishop c4 I think the worst is almost gone for Nakamura. He's attacking e6, and it doesn't seem there are many reasonable ways to defend it. I mean, bishop d7 and rook e4 seem very passive, if not bad. So bishop d5 was played here, allowing this exchange and reaching a rook endgame where white should be able to hold without much problems. Rook f7 is a key move. Nakamura can either take this pawn or go rook h7, controlling the passed pawn of black from behind, like Tarash used to say. Now of course rook takes d4, this pawn is falling, but king e3, the king goes towards the side of the board where the opponent has the passed pawn. So rook a4 now, but well, Nakamura first takes a7, and this is basically over, and should be dead draw. Moreover, between these top GMs, rook a3 check was played, a couple of moves more, king e4, now rook h7. Really, you don't care much about this pawn, you want to pick up the other one and make this a draw. Rook a2 check, king f1, king f3. Okay, nice trick. Trying to checkmate white in one move. This kind of cheapo tricks sometimes work in bullet or blitz, but not in a US chess championship between top 10 players. But okay, it is a move, it had to be played. Rook f7 check, king e3, and after rook e7 they signed the score sheets and it was over. It was a hard fought draw between USA number 1 and 2, Hikaru Nakamura and Wesley So. Really an interesting battle in this fourth round of the 2015 US Chess Championships. Thanks for watching.